Good evening, Harshit.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, Harshit.
Hi, ma'am.
Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Hi, Shravan.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. We are going to do Nazism and the rise of Hitler. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
fine. Let me just share my screen. Okay, let's begin. So Nazism, you all know about the Hitler, okay? And Hitler was Hitler was the one who started Nazism, and also whenever we talk about Hitler, um, we talk about the Holocaust that he did on the Jews. Okay, our let's begin with reading of the reader. In the spring of 1945, a little 11-year-old German boy called Helmut was lying in bed when he overheard his parents discussing something in very serious tone. His father, a prominent physician, deliberated with his wife whether the time had come to kill the entire family or if he should commit suicide alone. His father spoke about his fear of revenge, saying, "Now the Allies will do to us what we did to the crippled and Jews." The next day he took Elmon to the woods where they spent their last happy time together, singing old children's songs. Later, who were the allies? Okay, we will talk about them. Helmut's father shot himself in his office. Helmut remembers that he saw his father's bloody uniform being burnt in the family fireplace. So traumatized was he by what he had overheard and what had happened that he reacted by refusing to eat at home for the following 9 years. He was afraid that his mother might poison him. Hi Jitendra, how are you?
Fine, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
You saying something?
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, good evening. We are doing Nazism and the Rise of Hitler. Okay. We've just started reading, and I will start explanation after reading this page. Okay, now although Helmut, okay, now what happened till now? We are in the starting of your chapter. We are talking about Helmut, who is a 9-year-old boy. He overhears his parents talking in a very serious tone that it is time for the family to commit suicide. And in the next day, he takes his family and they have a nice time. And then his father shoots himself. Okay. And Helmut fears that even his mother will poison him because his father had said that it's time for the family to commit suicide. So, out of the fear of death, he didn't eat at home for the next 9 years. Okay, now although Helmut may not have realized all that is meant, his father had been a Nazi and a supporter of Adolf Hitler. Many of you will know something about Nazi and Hitler. You probably know of Hitler's determination to make Germany into a mighty power and his ambition of conquering all of Europe. You may have heard that he killed Jews, but Nazism was not one or two isolated acts. It was a system, a structure of ideas about the world and politics. Let us try and understand what Nazism was all about. Let us see why Helmut's father killed himself and what the basis of his fear was. Okay, now in 1945, Germany surrendered to the Allies. Okay, this was the end of the World War One. Okay, anticipating what was coming, Hitler, his propaganda minister Goebbels, and his entire family committed suicide. This was the end of the World War Two. Uh, uh, Hitler, his propaganda minister Goebbels, okay, and his entire family committed suicide collectively in his Berlin bunker in April. At the end of the war, an international military tribunal at Nuremberg was set up to prosecute Nazi war criminals for crimes against peace, for war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Okay, because they now, I think you all know why Hitler also committed suicide. Yeah, because he had lost the war and he knew nobody would spare him because he had committed very heavy war crimes and he had been and he had killed many Jews. So there was crime against humanity, war crimes, and crimes against peace. So in this picture, you can see this is Hitler in the center and Goebbels. That was his main. He's in the left. Okay, leaving after an official meeting in 1932. Who were the allies? The allies were the UK and France. Okay, in 1941 they were joined by the USSR and USA. They fought against the Axis power. So there were two people during the war. That was the Axis and the Allies. Okay, the war went between them. Who were the Axis powers? The Axis powers was Germany, Italy, and Japan. Fine, and the Allies were UK, France, USSR, and USA. Okay, so we will talk about the end of this war in later on. Okay, so what was this act? Under the shadow of the Second World War, Germany had waged a genocidal war which resulted in the mass murder of selected groups of innocent civilians of okay innocent genocidal war was there committed against Jews, which resulted in the mass murder of selected groups of innocent civilians of Europe. The number of people killed included 6 million Jews, okay, 200,000 gypsies, about 1 million Polish civilians, 70,000 Germans who were considered mentally and physically disabled. So he even killed his own German tribe who were mentally or physically disabled. Besides innumerable political opponents. Other than this, he killed political opponents. Now, Nazis devised an unprecedented means of killing people, that is by gassing them. What he did, he cut them up in a chamber that had no exit, only one exit was there, okay, and then he threw in gases, okay, deadly gases, that was I think some monoxide or something. Gassed them. He's in various killing centers like Auschwitz. The Nuremberg tribunal sentenced only 11 leading Nazis to death. So they were not only 11 people were tried in the Second World War when the war had ended. Okay, now many other imprisoned for life. The retribution did come, yet the punishment of the Nazis was far short of the brutality and extent of their crimes. The Allies did not want to be as harsh on defeated Germany as they had been after the First World War. So now we're going to talk about what had happened, who was Hitler, and how did it all begin. So we'll go to first of all this all you can say just leave out all this and then I'll let me tell you a short story. What had actually happened? Now it was a Hitler. Okay, now Hitler was a patriotic person. He loved Germany. Okay, now when he saw the disgrace Germany had to face because of the World War One, he blamed the government. He said he blamed the system that these are the ones who are responsible for the disgrace of German. And the main problem was the Weimar Republic, and the Versailles Treaty. Okay, so the Versailles Treaty had hurt his heart. Okay, and and because of this, he had determined himself to take revenge. Right. So let us. Okay, now Germany, a powerful empire in the early years of the 20th century, fought the World War One, the First World War that was between 1914. Just remember this year, the First World War was between 1914 and 1918. So the First World War went for how many years? 4 years. Okay. Now alongside the Austrian Empire and against the Allies. So there was again the Allies were there. Who were the Allies? That were the UK, France, and Russia. That is the USSR. Okay, all joined the war enthusiastically, hoping to gain from a quick victory. Little did they realize that the World War would stretch on, eventually draining Europe of all its resources. Germany had made initial gains by occupying France and Belgium. However, the Allies strengthened by the US entry in 1917. After that, the USA also joined them. Okay, when defeating Germany and the Central Powers in 1918. Okay, So Germany was defeated with the Central Powers. So who were the Central Powers? Were I think let me see. Yeah. Okay, it was Germany itself. Now, the defeat of Imperial Germany and the abdication of the emperor gave an opportunity to parliamentary parties to recast German policy. A national assembly met at VMR. VMR is a place, okay, and established a democratic contribution with a federal structure. Deputies were now elected to the German parliament or Reichstag on the basis of equal and universal votes cast by all adults, including women. The republic, however, was not received well by its own people, largely by the terms it was forced to accept after Germany's defeat at the end of the World War One. The peace treaty at the Versailles with the Allies was a harsh and humiliating peace. Germany lost its overseas colonies. Okay, lost its overseas colonies. Okay, tenth of its population, 13% of its territories, 75% of its iron, and 26% of its coal to France, Poland, Denmark, and Lithuania. The Allied powers demilitarized Germany. Okay, they took over their military. Okay, to weaken its power. Clause, the war guilt clause, held Germany responsible for the war and the damages the Allied countries suffered. Germany was forced to pay compensation of about 6 billion. This is pounds. Okay, the Allied armies also occupied the resource-rich Rhineland for much of the 1920s. Many Germans held the new Weimar Republic responsible for not only the defeat but for the disgrace of Versailles. Okay, so this was the heartbreaking point for Hitler. Okay, so German fought the First World War, that was 1914 to 1918, along with the Austrian Empire, and he only friend he had was the Austrian Empire, and against the Allies. Who were the Allies? There was England, France, and Russia. Germany initially made gains by occupying France and Belgium, but when USA joined in the war, Germany was defeated. Okay, and in 1918, and now when it was defeated, the defeat of the Imperial Germany gave an opportunity to parliamentary parties to recast German polity. Okay, National Assembly met at the Weimar and established a democratic reconstitution with a federal structure. The republic, however, was not received well by its people because of the terms it was forced. What are the terms? Germany had to pay all the war damages it had to pay, and how he had to pay? He had to pay in gold, which led to depletion of gold reserve. Their gold reserve was kind of taken away. Okay, so what happened? Germany refused to pay the war reparation, and now because he refused, France occupied its industrial area, Ruhr. Okay, now Germany retaliated by printing paper currency recklessly, but this led to inflation. Okay, we'll talk about it here. Okay, now this was the effect of the war. Okay, so now the war had a devastating effect on the entire continent, both psychologically and financially. From being a creditor, Europe became a debtor. Okay, the supporters of the Weimar Republic were criticized and became easy targets of attacks in the conservative nationalist whoever said that I am from VMR or I'm from the conservatives and all that, people began to attack that person. Why? Because they thought he was this VMR this Weimar Republic, or you can say the Versailles Treaty, was a disgrace to the Germans. Okay, now this what happened? The birth of Weimar Republic coincided with the uprising of Spartacist League on the pattern of the Bolshevik revolution of Russia. Now the Spartans founded the Communist Party in of Germany. Political radicalization was heightened by the economic crisis in 1923. Okay, they had to pay this, they had to pay that, they had pay to war, they had to pay the war damages, they had to pay for certain penalties. Okay, their the land was taken, iron was taken, gold was taken. Okay, so what happened now? They didn't have the money to pay, so they stopped paying. No, we will not pay. So when they refused to pay, so what happened? France occupied its leading industrial area, Ruhr. So this place was rich in iron. So now what happened? What they said? They said like it is easy for us. It was they said what we'll do? We'll print paper, more currency. But printing more currency did not bring down the prices of anything. What happened? The prices, the currency now, inflation rose. Inflation rose. That means now there you have to pay more money for a small piece of bread. Okay. So the value of the mark, that was Germany currency, collapsed. Prices of goods soared, and there was hyperinflation. Okay. Now came the year of depression. So in 1994, the depression, 1994 to 1928 saw some stability, yet it was built on sand. In 1924, with the introduction of Dawes Plan by the Germany came out of the financial instability. Germany was totally dependent on short-term loans, largely from the USA. But this support was withdrawn with the crash of 1929. There was a Great Depression in USA. We will study about that some other time. But this was a Great Depression of and the crash of Wall Street Exchange. Okay, the prices of everything in USA had risen. Okay, and because of that, now USA was facing trouble by themselves, so they refused to help Germany. They withdrew giving. They stopped giving any help to Germany. Now this was a problem. The Weimar Republic had some inherent defects. What are the defects? Proportional representation. The Weimar Republic had proportional representation. Article 48, which gave the president the power to impose emergency, suspend civil rights, and rule by decree. Now, this is important. The Weimar Republic was formed, and now the Articles 48. Okay, this gave the president powers to impose emergency and suspend civil rights. Okay, and now means the civil rights are suspended. Now, whatever the president will say, that will happen. Let's read about this. Effects of the war. The war had a devastating effect on the entire continent, both psychologically and financially. From a continent of creditors, Europe turned into one of debtors. Unfortunately, the infant Weimar Republic was being made to pay for the sins of the old empire. The republic carried the burden of war guilt and national humiliation and was financially crippled by being forced to pay compensation. They had to pay compensation, the Weimar Republic. So everybody began to see them by disgrace. Okay, now this is for those who supported the Weimar Republic, mainly socialists, Catholics, and Democrats, became easy targets of attack in the conservative nationalist circles. So the conservatives blamed the socialists. Okay, these are the people who are responsible for the disgrace Germany is facing. Okay, now they were mockingly called the November's criminals. This can also come as a short answer or some who are the November criminals. So they were the socialists who supported the Weimar Republic. This mindset made a major impact on the political developments of the early 1930s, as we will soon see. The First World War left a deep imprint on European society and polity. Soldiers came to be placed above civilians. Okay, now the propaganda what that was spread, that was that a soldier who is supposed to be a macho man, he is supposed to be a strong person. Okay, and he's glorified, he is seen as a reputed person. Okay, he's great, he's kind of a superhero. Okay, so okay, and they are not supposed to be kind, they are not supposed to be loving, they are not supposed to be tender, they are not supposed to, but they are supposed to be very harsh, they are supposed to kill, right? They are supposed to be very you can say strong in every way, and masculine and aggressive. Okay, so the politicians and publicists laid stress on the need for men to be aggressive, strong, and masculine. So this was the idea of a nice man. Okay. The media glorified trench life. Trench life means the harsh jungle life type. Okay. The truth, however, was that the soldiers lived miserable lives. Okay. So actual the position was the soldiers did not have a very glorified life. They were miserable. Okay, trapped with rats feeding on corpse. You know what's corpse? The dead men. Okay, they ate rats for food. Okay, they had no food, so they faced poisonous gas and enemy shellings and witnessed their ranks reduced rapidly. So they were even punished by um, you can say they were punished by their position going rank going downwards. Instead of promotion, they were demoted, they were depromoted. Okay, they faced poisonous gas, but their life was actually, in truth, it was miserable. Aggressive war propaganda and national honor occupied central stage in the public sphere, while popular support grew for conservative dictatorship that had recently come into being. Democracy was indeed a young and fragile idea which could not survive the instabilities of interwar Europe. Okay, now let me tell you one thing, the mindset of the people at that time. Okay, a macho man, a man should be strong, he should be angry, and he should be able to live in a all kinds of problems. He should be facing all the sort of problems, and that is a man uh, who is the one who is a hero. They should attack others. Okay, they should not be kind. So means a warrior, a war person is supposed to be a good person. So this mindset was the propaganda was, why was this spread? Because they had no, and a person who is kind-hearted, who is talking about peace and peace and stability is a you can say coward person. Okay, so democracy was seen as being coward, and aggressiveness and killing was seen to be honorable at that time. So that was a mindset. Why? Because they were suffering with themselves by, because they had financial problems and they were disgraced by the Treaty of Versailles. All of you understand so far? Anybody has any doubt? Let's talk about political radicalism and the economic crisis. The birth of Weimar Republic coincided with the revolutionary uprising of Spartak League. So this league was started. You can say the Bolsheviks revolution was there in Russia. Soviets of workers and sailors were established in many cities. The political atmosphere in Berlin was charged with demands for Soviet-style governance. This is Russia. The Bolsheviks are the ones that system is the one that should be imposed in Germany. This was the mindset of the people at that time. Those opposed to it, such as the socialists, the democratic, and the Catholics, they were criticized. Okay, okay, met in Weimar to give shape to the Democratic Republic. The Weimar Republic crushed uprising with the help of a war veterans organization called Free Corps. The anguished Sparcists later founded the Communist Party of Germany. communists and socialists henceforth became irreconcilably enemies and could not make common cause against Hitler. Both revolutionaries and militant nationalists craved for radical solutions. Political radicalization was only heightened by the economic crisis in 1983. We will talk about the economic crisis in 1923. Germany had fought the war largely on loans and had to pay war repatriations in gold. The gold was taken. Okay. This depleted gold reserves at a time resource were scarce. In 1923, Germany refused to pay. Okay, he refused to pay, and the French occupied the leading industrial area Ruhr to claim their coal. Okay, now they started that if you are not going to pay, we are going to occupy the industrial area Ruhr too, and they began to take coal. Fine. Now Germany retaliated, means they objected with passive resistance and printed paper currency recklessly. Okay, with too much paper, printed money in circulation, the value of the German mark, that is the German currency, fell. In April, US dollars was equal to 24,000 marks. Okay, the US dollar was equal to 24,000. Means people began to pay in bags and barrels. Okay, in July, 353 marks. In August, 4,000. 4,621,000 marks, and at 98 lakhs 860,000 marks by December. The figure had run into trillions as the value of mark collapsed. Prices of goods soared. When the prices of goods had risen up, the image of the Germans carrying cartloads of currency notes to buy a loaf of bread was widely publicized, evoking worldwide sympathy. This crisis came to be known as hyperinflation, a situation when prices rise phenomenally high. Hyperinflation. This may come into a short note or in a one word answer or something. Eventually, the American intervened and bailed Germany out by introducing the Dawes Law, Dawes Plan, and they began to help Germany by loaning them. Okay, now this was not for long. Why? Because of the years of depression. That is the years between 1924 and 1928. These 4 years saw some stability, yet this was built on sand. German investments and industrial recovery were totally dependent on short-term loans, largely from the USA. This support was withdrawn when the Wall Street Exchange crashed in 1929. Okay, fearing a fall in prices, people made frantic efforts to sell their shares. Okay, now everybody began to sell their shares. So because of this, the Wall Street collapsed. On one single day, 24 October, 13 million shares were sold. This was the state of the Great Economic Depression. Over the next 3 years, between 1929 to 1932, the national income of the USA fell by half. Factories shut down, exports fell, farmers were badly hit, and speculators withdrew their money from the market. The effects of the recession in the US economy were felt worldwide because they were interconnected by each other. So everything had crashed. The German economy was the worst hit by the economic crisis. Why? Because by 1932, industrial production was reduced to 40% in 1929. Workers lost their job or were paid reduced wages. The number of unemployed touched to unprecedented 6 million. Okay, people lost their jobs, and those who were in job, their wages were reduced instead of increasing. On the streets of Germany, you could see men with placards. Placards means that was the posters for demonstration around their necks saying willing to do any work. Unemployed youths played cards or simply sat on the street corners or desperately queued up at the local employment exchange. As jobs disappeared, the youth took to criminal activities and total despair became commonplace. So you see in the image here, people are hanging around on sleeping on a line. The economic crisis created deep anxieties and fear in people. The middle class, especially salaried employees and pensioners, saw their savings diminish when the currency lost its value. Small businessmen and self-employed retailers suffered as their businesses got ruined. These sections of society were filled with the fear of proletarianization and anxiety of being reduced to the ranks of the working class or worse still, the unemployed. Okay, what is proletarianization means? Just taken for an example, I am here. I'm being paid a salary, okay, for teaching you. Okay, now I am always constantly into a fear. Now that anytime I can lose my job. Now I'm going to be paid less, or my salary may be cut, or maybe now I can do very good well in my salary. Now in the next coming days, I might not be able to buy bread also. So this fear is called politicization, and this everybody begin to fear in Germany. Why? Because of the hyperinflation. Okay, and what was the cause of this? Because of the, and also now hyperinflation was there, and then the economic crisis of the Great Depression. US had withdrawn its help, so it became chaos in everybody's life. Only organized workers could manage to keep their heads above water. Keep their heads above water means to survive. But unemployment weakened their bargaining power. Big businesses was in crisis. The large mass of peasantry was affected by a sharp fall in agricultural prices, and women unable to fill their children's stomachs were filled with a sense of deep despair. Okay, so there was crisis in the agriculture also. The prices of agriculture was less, and the bread was expensive. So people were all in chaos. Politically, too, the Weimar Republic was fragile. Fragile means very weak. The Weimar Constitution had some inherent defects. What was the defect? Which made it unstable and vulnerable to dictatorship. Because republic was kind of a democracy, introduction of democracy, but people were not understanding democracy. For them, democracy was not good. Why it was not good? Because it was the what chaos they were facing, what problems they were facing. That was not because of the Weimar Republic. But what happened? They wanted someone to blame, so they began to blame the Weimar Republic. Okay, it is all because of this republic system, and now this is no good. We should have dictatorship. Okay, because one and this because of all this problem, and because the Weimar Republic system was there, so they began to blame this. And because dictatorship was a new propaganda that was being popularized by Hitler, so they began to favor dictatorship. You understand how Hitler came into power, how he was able to convince the people of Germany that dictatorship is good. Anybody has any doubt? Okay, the Weimar Constitution had some inherent difference which had made it unstable and vulnerable to dictatorship. One was proportional representation. It has only a proportional representation. This made achieving a majority by any one party a near impossible. No one party was there in rule. So because everything, okay, this might happen, that might happen. There was a lot of ifs and buts. Okay, because of the ifs and buts, they were not able to take any. You can say a concrete decision. They were not able to make a concrete decision for the people. Like into all this chaos, somebody should stand up and say, no, this is not to be happening. This should be happening, but nobody was there. Why? Because of the proportional representation. Okay, now this made achieving this मेरा चार्जर कनेक्ट कर दो. Okay, so this made achieving a majority by any one party near impossible task, leading to the rule of coalition. So they were all over coalition means mix and match. So somebody said this, they had to run a government by coalition. Another defect was Article 48. This was another defect which gave the president the powers to impose emergency. Now the president could impose an emergency, suspend civil rights, and rule by decree. Within its short life, the Weimar Republic saw 20 different cabinets lasting on an average of 239 days and a liberal use of Article 48. Yet the crisis could not be managed. People lost confidence in the democratic parliamentary system, which seemed to offer no solution. So this was used. So democratic parliamentary system, like I told you, people had lost faith in the system and they preferred dictatorship. Okay, now all these, you can say, he saw an opportunity, Hitler saw an opportunity in all these crises, and he began to rise into power. This crisis in the economy, polity, and society formed the background of Hitler's rise to power. He was born in 1889 in Austria. Hitler spent his youth in poverty. When the First World War broke out, he enrolled for the army, acted as a messenger in the front, became a corporal, and earned medals for bravery. The German defeat horrified him, and the Versailles Treaty made him furious. Like I told you, he uh, he also blamed the Weimar Republic for the Versailles Treaty. The people, the Weimar Republic, are the ones who were responsible for the disgrace of Germans. In 1919, he joined a small group called the German Workers' Party. He subsequently took over the organization and renamed it in the National Socialist German Workers' Party. This became to be known as the Nazi Party. Okay. In 1923, okay. So, in 1923, he planned to seize the control the Bavaria, march to Berlin and capture power. He failed, was arrested, tried for treason, and later released. The Nazis could not effectively mobilize popular support early in the till the early 1930s. It was during the Great Depression that Nazism became a movement. Like I told you, he became popular when during the Great Depression when everybody was in chaos. Yeah. So all of you understand? Anybody has so far? We will continue this later on. This chapter is wide, and you have a lot to understand. Anybody has any question? Okay, then we will end the class now. Bye, Harshad. Bye, Shravan. Bye,
Thank
Likita.
you,
Bye, ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.